telling me I am live, but I am not seeing the feed coming across on YouTube itself. So let me give it a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit late, but better late than never. So, welcome one, welcome all to today's midday update. This is Mark coming at you guys from our headquarters here in Toronto, Ontario, on this lovely Wednesday, August 28th, 2019. All right, so pretty good session on the books today. We had some okay movement out of the equity markets and from crude. Um, Not as much movement as we wanted to see into the European close, but we have seen a little bit of a grind higher since then. And crude oil has been doing the opposite. Crude oil has been making lower lows, lower highs, consolidating a little bit above the previous day close. But overall, still looking quite bearish, and SPOO's looking pretty bullish going into the last couple of hours, last 2 or 3 hours of this session. Kevin, I will never forget you guys. Never forget you guys here. All right, so let's get into this. So as far as what we've got for the remainder of the session, nothing too heavy on the agenda. Let's just double check and confirm. Most of the economic releases have already come out this morning, either before our YouTube update. The real big one that we had was the crude oil inventories report at 10:30. That comes out of the EIA report, and that generally has a lot of volatility for crude, not as much on the equity markets. As far as the equity markets, really not that much. During the U.S. session, we had MBA mortgage applications, which came in at minus 6.2% versus minus 0.9% prior. We also had a Trump tweet come out that our Federal Reserve cannot mentally keep up with the competition. Other countries at the G7 in France, all of the other leaders were giddy about how low their interest costs have gone. Germany is actually getting paid to borrow money. 0 interest plus. No clue Fed. Not really much to comment on that. Trump has been quite vocal about his stance with the Fed, and while they're not supposed to be, politics shouldn't be interfering with the Fed. That's kind of the case that we've been seeing. We also, mentioning back to that crude oil report, these were the numbers. So the crude oil report basically has 3 numbers that come out every Wednesday on normal market hours. It's likely going to be on Thursday next week, and we are planning to open up the room for you guys there. We'll send you guys a link where you can sign up for that. But that's going to be something exciting. So I'm going to explain how this guy works here. The crude oil report has 3 numbers. You get the crude number, you get the gasoline number, and you get the distillates number. All right. So the biggest reactions tend to happen when there is a massive build or a massive draw across all 3 categories. And in today's session, we had a bit of a draw, a massive draw on crude, an okay draw on gasoline, and an okay draw on distillates as well. So draw, there's the food. So draw basically means there is less supply, and that should be bullish for crude. However, just because it's bullish doesn't mean that the market's going to react that way. That is just the way that things go. All right, so despite a bullish report, crude is on its lows. Yes, it did have a bit of a run up into that report, but majority it basically sold off, giving away most of its early morning gains after that report came out. All right, so crude oil came in at minus 10 million draw versus minus 2.5 million expected. Gasoline was minus 1 million expected, came in at minus 2.1, so that's another draw. And distillates were a build of 1 million, came in at a draw of minus 2.1 million. So draws across the board, which is typically bullish. Big bullish beat from crude, but the API number came out last night, Tuesday evening, and crude caught a nice big bid off of that. So it seems like today's number was a bit baked in, and we're just pulling off of the highs based on that. All right, buy the rumor, sell the news. was the kind of trade on that front. And that's basically all that we have for today's US session. Nothing really on the agenda for the remainder of the session that I see here. Again, new squawks are important. I don't really anticipate one coming into the close, but you never know. So having a new squawk, especially if you are a day trader, swing traders, position traders, you can kind of get away without it. But if you're sitting in front of the screens throughout the morning and you're looking to take trades, you're a day trader, and having a squawk is very, very important. All right, so that's going to be my little spiel on the news events for today. Let me switch off of my face and onto my charts here, which you guys should be seeing shortly. Kevin, why did it rally after it was announced there will be more tariffs? Kevin, I have no idea why it rallied. We don't really look for the whys. We just look to trade what's happening. So whether it rallied or not, I mean, obviously it did rally here, but likely was the case that we have been pretty short. Short was the right side, and a bunch of people were getting paid being short, and that doesn't stick around very long. You need to have new money coming in to get moves, and new money coming in this case was a short squeeze, and that was the rally. That was the reason for the rally. There was more buyers than there were sellers at the level. Sellers kind of exhausted themselves, and we got a little bit of a buy stop run as a result of that. All right, so here's our quote board. We're coming in a little bit later, so about 2 hours later than we normally do. So volume has picked up a little bit, 1.14 million contracts. Pretty good volume. However, we are kind of just consolidating at the moment between the 88s and these 80s. Session daily change is up 0.67%. Previous day close came in here at the 67 quarters. Last traded price was the 84 3/4. That's where you get that number from. Crude oil. Crude oil is an interesting one. I'm not sure why my numbers never really line up for this thing, but it's showing you we're up 1.53% from the previous day close. However, we're kind of trading right at the previous day close, so I'm not sure if it's my numbers, but I'll have to get that fixed. In any case, it was bullish. However, you can see we opened bullish, but we're basically right back at the open. We're basically right back at the open at the moment. So we've given away all of the gains that we've made in the US session. All right, so that's what we're looking like on both of these fronts. Volume also looking pretty okay, 588,000 contracts. Crude closes, rather the pit closes in about half an hour. So there's usually a pit fade opportunity, and we'll take a look at the chart, see what we might be able to dig out from that. Here's the pivot charts. Right, pivot charts show that we have made a run up almost into the R3 on the session. R3 typically a measure of overbought during a single session. So when you get a single session where the market goes up into R3s, there's sometimes that it can just run through all the way up into, say, R5s, R6s, R7s. We've seen that. But what usually happens, what is more, how can we call it? Something that happens more often than it doesn't is that R3 and R4 regions tend to act as overbought levels, and same thing holds true for S3s and S4s. If you hit S3 or S4 on a single session, that is often an oversold condition. And while it might not mean a reversal is coming, you'll often see a bounce or some consolidation at those kinds of levels. So at the moment, we tried to press up into R3, didn't quite make it all the way up there, rotated back up, or rather back under R2. Now we've rotated back up into R2. Your R2 is your 55.97. Rotated back up into R2, and you can see now we're kind of rotating off. Looks like the sellers are holding that level, and that R1 is going to be a big support. If we can get back down there, that lines up at 55.46. And what I'm seeing on the chart right near that level, your 46 is right around there. You've got, you guessed it, your overnight low. So your overnight low is sitting down there as well. That's looking like a pretty big target here for the sellers. The fact that they've held this VWAP and the overnight high, and we're back below the open, just kind of consolidating previous day close and the open at this point in time. But ultimately, it's kind of looking like she wants to fade off into those overnight lows. And that's kind of the play that I'd be looking for into the 2:30 p.m. pit close. All right, that's what we got on crude. Here are your equities, your S&P 500 pivots. So, this session's kind of been a little bit wonky. We started off with some sell side pressure. We'd kind of failed to get back above the 2900 yesterday, and we opened up near the swing lows off of the pivot, held that rotation in the morning, came down into S1, tried it once, failed, tried it twice, failed. Now we're back up above the pivot and kind of just consolidating between that and the R1. And that's kind of what I see as the status quo into the end of today's session. Not really many news drivers left on the agenda to drive this thing. However, at the moment, it's kind of looking like upside is the right side. So as long as that pivot remains as support, pivots at the 75.20s or so on the chart, kind of lines up somewhere around there, right around your VWAPs, etc., your 5-day point of control. So that is a big support level for today. If we get back down there, we might try the S1s, but I don't really see that happening. I think the fact that we've broken over the pivot and we've spent some time here, we didn't just break over and rotate down. The fact that we are spending some time here has me thinking we're likely going to try another retest of those highs before the next move, either higher or back down. All right, so that's what I got on the SPOOs. Jumping onto our actual charts, here is what you will see. All right, so this is what I'm seeing, and on crude, there is a 9 a.m. open, right off the open, just a straight run up. 10:30, right around this time here, is when we had the EIA report come out. You can see quick little run to the upside, and just as quickly as the run to the upside happened, rotated back down, came back into the VWAP. Once we failed that, it's basically time for the sellers to kick in, and we got another rotation back up into previous support, turned into resistance. We also had this nice VWAP, the pit session VWAP, and traded that down into this VWAP and then back down to the open. Now you can see we had another rotation that has held, rotated back down, now rotated back up. Where did we come into? Right into that level that created the sell-off, right back into there, and now we're kind of trying to press back down again. So similar to what you saw here, you had several rotations below the open before we popped it. Now we've broken below it, we're rotating, should hold these rotations as resistance in order to see a move back below that low around the 55 halves, then make a run down into the overnight low and your value area low right in there as well. So that's kind of the play here for crude going into the last half hour of the pit session. And S&P 500 is showing a little bit of chop. All right, so off of the open, little sell-off into the overnight low, rotation, got some more sellers excited down here, trapped them, rotated up, and really since then, it's been a bull higher. Myself personally, I tried 3 shorts probably before I flipped to the long side. I think I tried my first short around previous day low. That one didn't really hold. Tried another one just above the open, and then a final one over at the VWAP before I finally said, all right, I'm going to stop fighting this thing. It's looking like it wants to flip. And then we flipped it back to the upside and recovered some of those losses there. So it's not about being right. It's about making money and, kind of putting your ego to the side. Based on where we're at right now, we did break over that overnight high, right? So we are just kind of holding around that level, just making a lot of consolidations. At this point, I wouldn't really be looking to buy it up here just because I'm seeing some resistance each time it's trying. So from here, I just look for another rotation back down into that overnight low, back into this little consolidation that caused that rally. If we can get back in there, find some support, you could look to pick something up. All right, that's what we got on S&P 500. And that's basically the update today, guys. One last thing to follow through with here is the TRADEPRO Performance Index. Let me see where I've got that sitting. There it is. All right. So there's a TRADEPRO Performance Index. And today's session was a bit trying in the morning. And these are the results that we had. So another, this is actually the first time since we've been recording these results that we've had 2 negative sessions in a month, but that is the reality of trading. Not every day is going to be a great day, and today is kind of an example of that. We had just under 30% up, just under 16% flat, and just under 56% down for the session overall, giving us a little bit of a blemish on our track record here for August. But as trade pros do, I wouldn't be surprised to see us hit around 80% tomorrow. We tend to bounce back really well. You can see the last time we had this kind of a day, look at the bounce back, 89% green, 77, 69. And that's kind of what I am expecting from our trade pros. We like to bounce back. We tend to bounce back, and we've got another 3 days to make a nice strong bounce back and get this average back towards the 70%. All right, so that's what I've got for the report today. You guys are being quite quiet in the chat section there. So that's probably going to be a wrap for me here. Let me just find where my thing is. All right, there's a camera. We're back on myself. If you will be trading into the close here, be careful with crude. Crude, you got another half hour left or so until the pit session closes. Once the pit session closes, trading gets loses a lot of the volatility as the pit traders go home for the day. As far as the S&P 500, you guys know your levels still looking bullish. Level of support I'd be looking at right around those 28.78s, 28.80s. The same level we were looking to take shorts from yesterday, 78.80s to the 78s to the 80s. Today, that's looking like a good support level for potential upside now that we've breached back above it. All right, that's what I got for today, guys. Until tomorrow, good luck and good trading. Take care. Now, let's see if I can find how to disable this. Stop recording. Okay.